Hey folks, welcome. Here we discuss real stories by real people. Today, we have the story of a man who created a fake profile to catch his wife when he finds out she's on a dating site. Let's see how it goes. Story 1. I, 32 male, was married to my ex-wife 31 for quite a number of years. We had a very stable relationship that was going rather great at the time. We were both working and sometimes had to be long distance for a few days or weeks due to work trips. The most recent trip I went on happened to be the longest throughout the course of our marriage. It was a 6-month training program that our company organized for its new recruits, and I was the coordinator. So naturally, I went on the trip, leaving her at home. While I was away, we communicated from time to time through phone and video calls. I also tried to travel back whenever I could over weekends. Because we had been together for a while and both respected each other's careers, the whole process was smooth sailing. She knew I was doing my best and never complained about how long the trip was. She even made the effort to come visit me sometime in the first few months. She took a few days' work to leave to come over because I was too occupied to do so, and I appreciated her greatly. I couldn't have asked for anything more. It had been about 5 months since I left and was counting down mere weeks to my return, even going as far as planning a little getaway for us to make up for all our lost time when everything went down the drain. One day, a friend of mine reached out saying he had something important to tell me. I called him to hear it, and he told me that he saw my then-wife on some dating app he was using. I couldn't believe it, so I told him he may have been wrong, or that it was Catfish. And we ended the conversation with him sending me a link to the account, just in case. At that time, I had no reason to doubt her, so I decided to ask her about it jokingly. I brought it up when we were on a Skype call and she seemed surprised. She claimed that it was impossible. I told her that he even showed me the account, but she brushed it off, claiming that it must have been nothing but a catfish account. They were quite popular these days. I agreed with her, and we let the conversation go. Yet somehow I couldn't get my mind to ease, so I decided to confirm for myself and created an account under a fake name, then DM'd her. A few hours later, she responded, and we began to chat. Over the next few weeks, we started talking more and getting familiar with each other, and along the line, I was almost certain that it really was her from the responses I got, so I asked her to meet. We set a date and time, and without her knowledge, I flew back for the meeting. All this time, my ex was none the wiser. She had no idea that I would be coming back and must have had no worries about her clandestine affairs. On that day, I arrived at the agreed restaurant and took a seat at a far corner, waiting. A few minutes later, she arrived, gave the name for the reservation, and sat down waiting. I watched as she texted me on the dating app that she was there. Now that I had no doubts that she was the person, I stood up and walked up to her. She stood up to greet her date, but saw me instead. She was startled, looking guilty and nervous, and I asked myself what I was doing there. I had not told her I was back in town. I told her the username I used on the app, lifted my phone to show her the chats, and told her that I was him, here for our date. She realized what was going on and that she was caught. She immediately began to apologize, making all sorts of excuses, but I just turned away and left. She didn't return home that night, too embarrassed to face me. I wanted nothing to do with a cheating spouse. So after I finally returned from the trip, I asked for a divorce. I'll move on. I'm sorry this happened to your marriage, Opie. Your soon-to-be ex-wife really is something else. I'm glad you two had no children, so you were able to divorce her without any problem. She's probably been cheating on you all this while, or she planned on it. I don't understand why she couldn't just stop once she found out you knew about the account on the dating app. She just lied about it and she continued to do her own thing. I wish you good luck with everything, Opie. I hope you'll be able to put all this behind you. Story 2. I, 31 male, am devastated. I found out 3 weeks ago that my loving wife, 30 of 8 years and high school sweetheart, has been having an affair with my mentor, business partner, and friend, 37 male, Brad. I'm self-employed and have several successful businesses and ventures that keep me working 50 to 60-hour weeks on the regular. Although I'm quite successful in the sense that I have a nice house, eat well, have a couple older cars that I own, and a nice big car payment for the wife and kids, 4 female, 7 female newest whip, 2018 and 2019 have been a real financial struggle thanks in part to my newest venture. I've worked for and with Brad's businesses over the years and continue to in various ways to this day. This new investment in business has been a significant investment of time and money for all of us. We opened this new business 1 year ago, and in that time, I've spent 5 to 10 hours each week behind the scenes in various capacities, in addition to maintaining our other businesses and my family's main source of income. Brad contributes 30 to 40 hours each week inside the business, and my wife spends about 20 hours a week in business and another 10 outside behind the scenes. Although this recent investment was our first partnership, I've known Brad for 12 years. He helped me start every single one of my businesses, and I've worked directly for his company as his graphic designer with my marketing firm for over 10 years. My wife and I met in high school. She followed me to college, and we've been going steady ever since. Married in 2011, we had our first daughter in 2012, second in 2015. We started a business together in 2013, thanks in part to Brad's encouragement and support. And we worked together operating that on the weekends while she raised our kids during the week and I spent way too much time at work. We've always had what I consider a happy marriage that only grew stronger when we had kids and opened businesses together. We fought as I thought all married couples do. Over the last year, we've discovered that Brad's wife, 39, has a personality disorder, and that he and their children, 4 female, 6 male, have been in an emotionally abusive relationship for years. Within months of the business opening, it became apparent that Brad's wife would not be able to contribute to the business like the rest of us because of her emotional instability, and I had to sit her down and tell her as a friend and partner to take a back seat. She did that for some time, told us all she got some medication, and eventually came back in very limited and superficial ways but was able to contribute a bit. About 4 months ago, my wife and Brad informed me that Brad had decided it was time to separate with his wife and that everyone would be better off for it. We all agreed this was a good move for his personal life. During this time and over the last year, my wife has spent a lot of time in the business and worked directly with him in many ways. They became very good friends, and she is his counselor in a sense. My wife and I felt like we were helping our good friend get through a very tough situation. We've all been friends for 10 plus years and we're all very professional. And Brad and I, as well as my wife, are very respected business owners in the community. My wife and Brad started to spend a lot of time together, in and outside of the business, within the context of talking and working over the last few months. The babysitter bill doubled, and I started to feel like my wife was spending more time than necessary at work. I confronted her in various ways about that, but she would dismiss it as the busy season, and her and Brad maintaining a very precarious situation with staffing, etc. About 4 weeks ago, before I knew of any funny business, I kind of had a mental breakdown. I cried in front of my wife and told her I felt like something was wrong with me or us, and that I was really stressed out and anxious about money, our relationship. And she basically told me that I should go see someone and that everything was going to be fine. She's always been the encouraging and optimistic partner in our relationship, and I was just feeling like I was in a deep rut. She admitted then that she was also in a funk and maybe needed to get away for the weekend. I decided to go see my brother in Philly and Grandma took the kids. She said she went to a spa in the hills. Friday night after our weekend apart, my wife ditched me. We were both at work, and when I tried to link things up as things were wrapping up, she was nowhere to be found. We had some very delayed texts, and she was at home with the kids by 10:30 and I was working until at least 2 a.m. That week, my friend James had been texting me to link up, and at some point late that evening after my wife was already home, he sat me down in a quiet place and told me he thought Brad and my wife were having an affair. I doubted him and told him how insane that would be. Reassured him that they and we were all great friends and that could never happen, and Brad's still going through his divorce. Well, I went home and made my wife sleepily open her phone in the middle of the night. I grabbed the phone out of her hand before she could do much more than open it, and she had it open to the text with Brad that confirmed a full affair and sexual relationship. I barely saw anything, but I knew everything I needed to know. She quickly followed me out of our room, got her phone back, and deleted his texts. She admitted to the affair and told me it had been going on for weeks and months. I was in such shock and disgust that I couldn't hardly process anything. She was also half asleep and had probably taken a sleeping aid. She said she was sorry, she needed time and space, and somehow we went to bed. I barely slept, and the next morning I was at Brad's house by 7 a.m. He was awake and came out to meet me when I arrived and got in my car. I knew that he knew, that I knew when he got in the car. We had a very somber and confusing conversation where he apologized and said he didn't understand how it all happened. Seemed remorseful and told me I needed to talk to my wife. I came back home with breakfast and talked a little more with my wife. She told me her head was spinning and that she needed to go to work that night and to talk to Brad. I said that was a terrible idea and begged her not to go. But after I went to work at 4 p.m., she dropped the kids with the babysitter and spent the entire evening until at least 11 p.m. with Brad out of town. Out of work, talking and getting dinner. I came home late that night and woke her up trying to get into her phone. Things got heated and I could have broken her arm, but thankfully I didn't. In the weeks since, I've hardly slept or ate. But as I understand my situation now, my wife and Brad have chosen to continue to have a romantic and emotional relationship with each other, while they continue to work together in and outside of the business. They've both told me that they're in love with each other and they can't stop it now. Brad's divorce is still ongoing and precarious to say the least. My wife has told me that we're done and that we need to focus on how to be good co-parents moving forward. She said that she's willing to do 50-50, but we need time to sort out our future in the businesses and figure out a new living situation. She said that we will get a divorce, but isn't really discussing anything specific, with the idea that we will need to continue to hold our joint household until Brad is ready to move her out with space for all the kids, I guess. She took off her ring about a week ago and has told several friends and family members that we're separating. She knows how devastated I am and said that she loves me, but that she isn't in love with me and hasn't been for quite some time. Thinking back to our biggest issues, which have resurfaced in light of our current situation, I've been emotionally disconnected in her eyes for years, perhaps our entire marriage as she has suggested, and she has ultimately been comfortable but unhappy for several years. We would clash in silly ways at work, but I wrote that off as us both having strong opinions and personalities. I smoked too much weed, and she hated that. I'm always late, and she hates that. We fought about sex and intimacy, but we were still having regular sex right up until 3 weeks ago, thanks to my persistence on that front, I'm sure. Professionally, I've continued to go to work and work with them both in our businesses, although perhaps a little less directly. The staff is all super suspicious and probably knew before I did. Both my wife and Brad have limited their time at work and placed some of our other managers in their stead, but still insist on working together on certain aspects and projects, and tonight, they're off at a business event out of town with some of our senior staff. I can only imagine the hotel accommodations. It's too painful to ask my wife if she's staying in Brad's room while I'm at home with the kids. All of our businesses are just a pile of debt at this point, so there's not really a clean or clear way out except to make them successful, and eventually someone buying someone else out or continuing to be partners as we all raise our kids together. I guess I'm just writing this down to cope. It's all so effed up, I don't even think I've properly explained. I don't know how to move forward except for doing nothing and remaining as calm and as stable as possible. The kids don't know, and they don't really need to know anything, until we're ready to change up our living situations. I don't have the means to relocate her or provide adequate care for my young children without her. She moved to the basement 2 weeks ago because I told her I wouldn't be leaving our room. I've been getting up early with kids because I can't sleep, and taking the kids to school every morning while she has started to come into work late, disappear for long periods, and has become less available for the kids. I've begged her to stay with me and get couples counseling, which she has refused. I've cried a lot. I've been angry, depressed, jealous, anxious, and just absolutely devastated. I still feel like I'm gonna wake up from this nightmare any moment. Opie, I'm sorry that this happened to you. You seem like a great guy and you deserve to be with someone that loves you. You need to see a therapist and you need to get better for your children's health and your mental health. I know that it sucks that he has taken everything that you love, but you can't give up hope. You're a great person and someone who loves their children. Ask for 75-25 custody considering that she's been distant from your kids. Don't do anything stupid and be smart about everything. Go to the gym and get better. Live your life and be there for your kids. The only thing that you can do is to move on. She doesn't want to work on your relationship, and she will soon realize that she left someone great for someone terrible.